Introduce you to the budget binder. So within the budget binder, you'll have a public-facing section that will be posted to our website today, and that's the formal budget, proposed budget from the superintendent. And behind every tab thereafter are supporting details, significant level of supporting details. And we'll walk through each of those individual tabs at next week's meeting. So today we'll be working through each one of the categories. So starting with the budget priorities, I mean, clearly our priority is to provide a high level of instruction to our students, and that can only be provided through our dedicated teachers, support staff, and administrators. And another shout out, of course, to our operations and maintenance personnel for their tremendous amount of work over the last couple of days in getting our students back into the schools and learning today. So our top budget priorities are the negotiated agreements. EASMIC negotiated agreement includes a STEP and a 2% COLA for fiscal 2026. The EASMIC ESP negotiated agreement for our support staff include a new scale, a STEP, and a 1% COLA. And the SMASA negotiated agreement for our administrators include a new scale, STEP, and a 1% COLA. We also have included health insurance increases as well as pension increases. And for our transportation, our contracted bus driver and attendants wage increases, a bus driver retention stipend, as well as contract increases for PBA, operations, and maintenance. The presentation style of this morning will be similar to what you've seen in prior years, so you can easily go back and reference prior year presentations. It's the same exact format. So we'll walk through each one of the individual categories, and these are the MSDE dictated categories. We'll review the requested increases, and you'll see a common theme that there is funding for negotiations and there are decreases throughout every category. Each one of our directors spent a tremendous amount of time really looking at how they can, as Ms. Bachner spoke earlier, think outside the box and stretch every dollar. They spend a lot of time really doing a lot of self-reflection, self-directed performance evaluations. So starting with our administration category, there is a requested increase of $218,000 or 4.7% increase, providing funding for negotiations, as well as an offsetting decrease in our OPEB actuarial valuation, and this is because this is the off year. We have to provide a full valuation every other year, and a decrease in our DocStar host services. In the mid-level administration category, there is a requested increase of $720,000, a 3.5% increase. The highlights include funding funding for negotiations, and an offsetting reduction in information technology communication contracts, and this is in the amount of $20,000, as well as accountability office dues, subscriptions, and conferences decrease. Instructional salaries and wages, there is a requested increase of $3.1 million or 3.1% increase that provides funding for negotiations, as well as being offset by a reduction of 16 positions. There were 5 positions that were reallocated earlier this fiscal year with your approval to special education to support our TIDES and SAILS program. There is one reallocation within this budget from the instructional salaries category to health services for a nurse. And then there are reductions of stipends, supplemental pay, and curriculum workshop. In the current fiscal year's budget, if you recall, there is a one-time allocation for a Blueprint NBC incentive at our Blueprint schools, and that was a one-time incentive. In our textbooks and instructional supplies category, there is a requested decrease of $1.9 million or 40%, and that is because there is no allocation of fund balance for textbook adoptions in the current fiscal year. There was a one-time allocation in the FY25 budget of $2 million to support our ELA adoptions. Under the other instructional cost category, there is a requested increase of $203,000 or a 7.7% increase. That allows for funding increase for our contracted athletic trainer from $44.45 to $45.88, or a 3.2% increase. There is a one-time use of Blueprint Workforce Development Fund balance to support our School Links college and career software. And those funds are included in this category because they'll be provided directly to the Tri-County Council as part of their funding allocation. As part of their Blueprint funds, we had a set aside specifically starting last fiscal year, and any of those remaining monies had to be set aside on your balance sheet for them to utilize in future years. There's also a reduction in contracted temp agency, conferences, training, and dues and subscriptions. In the special education category, there is a requested increase of $1.1 million, or 4.8% increase, funding for negotiations, as well as the FY25 mid-year reallocation of the positions from the instructional salaries category to support tides and sale. For student personnel services, there is a requested decrease of $39,000, or a 2.1% decrease, to support funding for negotiations, as well as a reduction in computer software, which is now being covered under the Tri-County Council Blueprint Workforce Development. So that was a reduction in this category of $92,000 for the existing software. For the student health services, there is a requested increase of $258,000, or a 7.8% increase, to support funding for negotiations, a reallocation of the instructional salaries category for one nurse position, and funding to support EpiPens, AED battery replacement, and the support for that particular item is $20,000 increase. Under student transportation, there is a requested increase of $126,000, or a 0.5% increase, to support funding for negotiations, an hourly contracted driver attendant rate increase of 3%, maintenance fee increase of 0.03 cents per mile, funding to support the continuation of the healthcare trust contribution, a contracted bus PVA increase, and a use of fund balance to support the continuation of the contracted bus driver retention stipend. There's also, pleasantly, a reduction in our fuel rate. In our current year's budget, it is $4.50, and we were able to reduce that to $3.75. So that demonstrated a $346,000 decrease in just our fuel rate. So that's offsetting most of the increases in this category. Under operation of plant, there is a requested increase of $400,000, or a 1.8% increase, to support funding for negotiations. There are no vehicle replacements scheduled. There is a 3-year AHERA inspections planned. Additional funding is needed to support the print shop copier lease renewal. We have a 10% increase currently scheduled for our property insurance. We will not receive our rate increases from MABE until probably the spring. We have funding allocated for additional security camera licenses, as well as intrusion alarm repairs, elevator and lift inspections, fire alarm maintenance inspections, and sprinkler inspections and tests. Fortunately, we were able to include a reduction in our utilities budget, though. Under maintenance of plant, we have an overall reduction of $930,000, or a 13.2% decrease. We do have funding included for negotiations. However, we have no allocation of fund balance. In the current fiscal year, there was an allocation for the building management system. And we also have a reduction in our consultant services. Fixed charges, we have a requested increase of $1.6 million, or a 2.3% increase. That includes Social Security associated with negotiations, pension increase, a health insurance minimal increase of 5% is projected. We are banking on the fact that our employees and retirees have been heavily utilizing the Everside clinics. You just recently approved the Prudent RX contract, which will assist in decreasing our health insurance costs. And we just implemented this month the Medicare Advantage plan for our retirees over 65. So all of those items we're hoping will be driving down our future increases in health insurance. We will not receive our actual amount from CareFirst until late February or early March. We have included a general liability workers' compensation insurance increase at this time of 10%. Once again, we're awaiting that final number from MAVE, but we have removed an OPEB contribution in the FY26 budget. Under capital outlay, we have a requested increase of $23,000 or a 2% increase. And we have included funding for negotiations, but have removed a reduction of a part-time support. So to balance the budget, as well as understanding that there is a reduction in enrollment, we have reduced all of our positions by a net of 10. In our current fiscal year, we have 2,096 positions. In the proposed budget, we have 2,086 positions. The anticipated recurring savings that this will generate is about $700,000 that has been included in your FY26 budget. And this is because, as we discussed in the budget preview meeting last month, we do have a reduction in enrollment of 114 students when you look at the 3-year rolling average. The actual reduction in students in the current fiscal year is 329. However, the basis for our funding formula is based on the 3-year rolling average. We also have included that results in a decrease in our state revenues, as well as we have a decrease in our farms applications. We have a decrease in our allocation from state revenue and transitional supplemental instruction, as well as Blueprint Transition Grant. So we have to look at all these factors when we're working on developing our budget. So that leads us to our recurring unrestricted fund revenues. We are requesting local funds of $139.7 million or a $5.3 million increase. And this reflects a 4% increase in local funding requests, which mirrors exactly what the county commissioners are including in their projections for their county government departments. For state funding, based on what is currently in law, we have factored in $147.7 million or a $4.3 million increase. We have included $2.7 million in federal funds or a $19,000 increase. And other miscellaneous funds, we've included $3.1 million or a $714,000 increase, which is predominantly associated with our interest income. So the total recommended budget at this time from the superintendent is $293.2 million or an overall increase in the recurring funds of $10.4 million. And we specifically state recurring funds because, as you recall, in the current year's budget, we did have $7 million of fund balance. However, we will not have that level of fund balance available to us to support the FY26 budget. So at this time, we have included $1.5 million of fund balance in the FY26 budget, reflecting an overall decrease in fund balance to support the FY26 budget of $5.5 million. The fund balance of $1.4 million will be used to support the bus driver retention stipend as well as the workforce development software. And then we have the $137,000 from the charter school. So, recurring monies of $293 million or $10 million increase, offset by a reduction in our non-recurring, reduction in our fund balance usage of $5.5 million, provides us with a total increase to the bottom line of the budget of $4.9 million. The recommended budget before you totals $294 million, which represents a 1.7% increase, a nominal 1.7% increase over the current fiscal year. On the expenditure side, we summarized here every category, and you can see clearly the largest changes are as in alignment with your budget priorities. So under instructional salaries and wages, the $3.1 million increase, associated fixed charges, $1.6 million increase. Again, a nominal increase overall of 1.7%. Before you are the important dates that Dr. Smith mentioned in his earlier presentation. We will be meeting and going through all of the details in the budget binder at next week's meeting. That is your opportunity to ask your detailed questions. And then the budget will be submitted for public hearing on January 22nd, and then finalized by you for approval on February 5th, and then sent over to the county commissioners for consideration. They have their public hearing scheduled for April 22nd, and they will be providing you with final direction on May 20th, and you are scheduled to adopt your budget for FY26 on May 21st. The legislative session did start yesterday. We have not received our preliminary projections from MSD based on the governor's proposed budget. His proposed budget is scheduled to be released next week on the 15th, and we expect to receive information from MSD by the end of next week as well. So, are there any questions at this time, or Dr. Smith, do you have any additional comments?
Well, I really don't, other than the fact that this reflects a great deal of work, and it really did require, everybody to go back, sharpen pencils, take a look at what do we need to minimally maintain all of our service to students, and while still respecting all of the negotiated agreements that have been really a great deal of time and discussion. We have multi-year negotiated agreements. We're the envy of other counties because we do. It is a known cost up front. You know exactly what the cost is going to be year over year to maintain your staff and to give them compensation. Staff knows exactly what their salaries will be year over year. We're in a very good and stable place. I put to anybody, show me a budget that's increasing by 1.7%, and I'll show you an organization that has sharpened its pencils, really gone back, and is trying to be as fiscally prudent as they possibly can.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work, and I'm sure we will.
It will be quite a month.
It will be. So, all right. With that, our work session is closed.